Welcome to Little Steps, Big Gains and our series on Let's Talk Incontinence. We're going to cover a lot of information in a 7-video series. We'll start with what is the pelvic floor, what is incontinence. We'll talk through treatment strategies for bowel incontinence, bladder incontinence. I will introduce you to a 4-week pelvic floor strengthening program per doctor pending and doctor approval, and then a video on what now. I'm excited you're here. I'm excited you're joining. Let's get started. So what is the pelvic floor? It is a hammock-shaped group of muscles on the bottom of the pelvis that go from your sacrum in front down underneath to your tailbone and back. And it has a role in 3 systems. First, our urinary system, and this is what we often think about because it helps control the bowel and bladder, but it's involved in 2 other systems. First, the abdominal musculoskeletal system. It coordinates with your deep abdominals and your diaphragm to stabilize your spine. And third, it's involved in the respiratory system. We don't often realize that, but it synchronizes with our diaphragm, which is your largest breathing muscle. It synchronizes with it to help support our breath support. So if you have a weak pelvic floor, all 3 of these systems are affected. We may have bowel or bladder incontinence. We may have poor core trunk control or back pain. And then our respiratory system is affected, maybe our activity tolerance or our breath support. Now, while all 3 of those systems are affected in this series, we are going to go ahead and focus on our urinary system, and that would be bowel and bladder incontinence. Incontinence is actually a really broad term because if we break it down for urinary incontinence, there's actually 4 main types. First is stress incontinence, and this is where we get a leakage of urine due to external pressure, like a cough or a sneeze or going from a sit to a stand or carrying something heavy. Number 2, urge incontinence. This is where we get these intense, sudden urges followed by involuntary leakage. Now, this originates from abnormal bladder contractions, where the bladder is contracting when it should not. The muscles around the bladder override the sphincter muscles, which I call the exit muscles, the ring, and then we get leakage of urine. 3 is overflow incontinence. So our bladder is not emptying all the way, and then it gets full and we may not sense it is full. We lose that sensation, and then we get this constant dribbling. And number 4 is functional incontinence. And this is where we have a hard time making it to the toilet on time because of a physical or mental limitation. So you get there and maybe you have arthritis in your hands and we can't unbutton our pants on time. And then there's mixed incontinence, which is a combination or 2 or more of the above. Now, it's so important to break down these types of incontinence because each one has a different treatment approach. I'm going to dive in deeper to each one of these types and the different treatment approaches in video number 3. But first, if an individual has both bowel and bladder incontinence, it is often recommended to start by treating the bowel incontinence first. So that's where we're going in video number 2. I hope you found something educational here and that you come along with me.